Hello everybody, my name is Sam Faree and welcome to Lesson 1 of Learn2Code Introduction. And we're going to be starting with the C++ language in this series of videos. And today we're going to be doing a general overview of basic C++ and the Hello World program, which if you've learned to program in anything else or even in C++, you will have seen this example before. Up on the screen I have our objectives. We can see the first one bold is a simple introduction to Linux. I'm going to be using Linux throughout this series of videos. So just be mindful that if you want to use Linux, it's free to install, and you could certainly partition off your drive and keep any Windows or Mac installations that you may want to keep. But if you're going to be working on a Mac or Windows, it's going to be slightly different. For instance, the compilers that you're going to be using, you're going to have to follow your own compiler's instructions, but the code itself will not change. And then we're going to look at the basic format of the Hello World C++ program, which will include statements, using namespace statements, declarations of the main function. I'm going to show you how to comment your code and then print to the C output stream or console out, and then understanding returning 0 and what that means. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the makefile, and then we're going to actually upload all the code for this lesson up to GitHub, and I will provide a link for that at the end of this video and also be linked in the description so that you can download this lesson and any future lessons we do. As soon as they are completed, they will be uploaded onto GitHub, so you'll have access to all the source code we use. So let's start with basic Linux. I'm using gedit here. It's a very simple text editor and it will work just fine for our purposes. On my left desktop I have my command prompt, my bash shell, and then these are the only two windows that we're really going to be using. And so this is the setup that I will have every video. Now the first thing we're going to do is we want to look at our hello CPP file. C++ files have the extension of .cpp, and we are going to start with the include statements. Now, include is what's known as a preprocessor directive, and it will tell the processor something about it would tell the preprocessor about what it needs to do before it runs through the actual compiler. And we'll get into a little bit more detail, but in this case I'm going to include IOStream, and all that says is I'm going to be printing to the standard input and output stream. That's it. The next thing we want to do is we want to use the standard namespace, or using namespace std, using namespace standard. The output stream is in the standard namespace, and so we'd have to prefix everything in the standard namespace with std : : but this statement says, look, everything in the standard namespace, just consider us using that namespace. And this is to prevent duplication of variables. If you include different libraries that have the same variable name or same function name, the namespaces kind of put them into their containers. And then we'll talk more about namespaces in future videos. And then if we take a look at our objectives, we can see that the next is the declaration of the main function. Now, whenever a C++ program is run, it looks for a function that is declared with int main, correct typo, and then opened this way. Now, what is interesting about this definition is this says I have a function called main, and it is going to return an integer. Now in C++ we always return an integer from our main function, and usually it's 0. And that just says when we return 0, it says that we executed the main function with no errors. Next, we're going to talk about code comments. Code comments in C++ are declared a couple of ways. You can use a single line comment, which is the // which says everything after this line is a comment, and the compiler will ignore it. So we're just going to, you could type this is a comment, and you could see that it's it's something that the computer is going to ignore when it runs this code. It's put in for the developers. And then you can use multi-line comments, which are started with a /* and ended with a */. And you could put stuff in here and it will comment out entire sections of code. I'm just going to use the // and say make console say hello, because that's what we're about to do. And then the way we do this in C++ using the IO stream, the standard IO stream, is we do cout, and we're going to send stuff to console out, and in this case we're going to send hello world, and then we're going to send endl, which is a special pointer that you can send to cout that will create a carriage return and create a new line. So if we look at our objectives, we can see that we've talked about, well, let's check this off here. We've done this. We understand the include statement. This just says, I need the IOStream library in this program in order to use cout and write to the program. The standard namespace is where IOStream is kept, and I talked a little bit about it. For instance, if we didn't use a standard cout, we would have to do standard cout and standard endline, and that would pop up everywhere in the programs that we're doing. And so putting that using namespace standard at the top saves us from that, and it's very handy. And then the declaration of the main function we also talked about. We talked about code comments. We showed how to print to the console out, and we showed how to return 0. Now, before we can actually build this, very early I'd like to start you guys using makefiles, which tells the Linux compiler how to build your programs. If you're using like Visual C++ Express, for instance, on a Windows box, or some other IDE on Mac OS X, you can go ahead and ignore this part. But if you're on Linux and you're planning on doing C++, makefiles are going to make your compiling with GCC a lot more efficient. So let's take a look at what's in the intro makefile. And you can see I have this target here, says hello, and it depends on hello.o or .object, the hello object. And what this says is if it depends on hello.o. So this means before we can build hello, we need the hello.object file. So we go down to the hello.object file, and it depends on nothing. And so what it's going to run is it's going to run g++ -c, which is compile hello.cpp. And that's going to create this hello.object file. And then once we have that, we can go back to the hello target. We've cleared up all the dependencies, and now we can do g++ -o, which means we're going to look at object files, and then create the hello executable. So if we go into our console and we type make hello, we can see that it ran the that hello.object file did not exist, but now, so the first thing it did was ran the compile on the hello.cpp, and then it ran here. Now if we try to run the program, hello, we can see the console tells me hello world. So we have made the working hello world program in C++. Now the makefile may seem a little bit redundant here at the beginning. I could have just entered these two commands, but as we begin to build more and more complex programs with multiple different source files and linking them together, these makefiles are going to save us a lot of headache. And the last thing we want to talk about today is we want to actually upload onto GitHub. And so what we're going to do with GitHub is you can follow the instructions for setting up a Git repository. I've already ran git init on this folder for Learn2Code, and we'll actually back out. You can see we just have the one there and the GitHub README. And if we take a look at our Git status, we can see that objectives.txt has been edited and that we've added 3 files, hello, cpp, and makefile. Now, some things I don't want to submit to GitHub. For instance, the executable. I don't want to send my executables out to GitHub. GitHub is really meant to be your source files and everything needed to build the programs, not the programs themselves. So I am going to go into what's called a git ignore, And I'm going to actually just edit this really simply in Nano. Nano is a simple console editor in Linux. You could do this in Notepad or whatever IDE you're using if you're using Mac OS X or Windows. And I'm going to add lesson 1. That's a comment, and then I'm just going to say hello. And this says Git's going to ignore any file named hello. And up here we have ignoring star.o, so Git's ignoring the object files, and star.tilde ignores any of my gedit backup files. So we'll save this, and then we'll check our Git status again. And as you can see, we're no longer tracking the hello program. It doesn't come up. But we also have modified our git ignore. That's fine. So we do a git add dot. Now these changes are unstaged. The git ignore, the ignore objectives, the hello CPB, and the make file, they're unstaged and untracked, which means they're not ready to be committed. A git add dot will take everything that is untracked and unstaged and stage it for commit. So if we do that, and then I'm just going to clear out my console here and do a git status again, we can see that all these changes are ready to be committed. 2 files modified, 2 files new. And I'm just going to do a git commit -am, which stands for commit all, and then the M is with a message, and the message is just going to be add lesson 1 source. And then you can see that it committed that to our repository, and we are ready to do a push up to GitHub so that you guys can get this. And if you want more information on using Git, there's a lot of information out there on the internet. It's one of the most popular tools for working on code projects and managing the different versions of your software. But I have this set up, so what I'm going to do to push up to GitHub is just a git push. I'm going to push to origin, and what I'm going to push to origin is the master branch. I don't have any other branches, and the only branch that we will probably ever be working in is master. So again, if you'd like to go learn more about branches in Git, that information is out there on the internet for you. And so it's going to just ask me for some authentication. My GitHub username is CzechsMix, and then my password here. And it does look like it pushed up to GitHub, and so that is ready to go. Yep, there we go. We got the message back that we pushed it up, and that is the end of lesson 1. We talked about GitHubs, and we've accomplished all of our objectives. So until next time, and lesson 2, we will learn about void functions and how functions help make programming large programs easier. I am Sam Free, and thank you for stopping by.